Greetings, enthusiasts of all things monster. I know it's been a little while. I have been working on what you actually voted for in that little community tab over on our YouTube homepage. But meanwhile, this arrived, and what shall I do with this other than to share it with you? For this box is big. This is Primal The Awakening. I will be showing you the core box unboxing, and as you see, it's just another epic size board game. I mean, this competes with Aeon Trespass, Odyssey, Frosthaven. Let's take a look at the back here real quick. And there we have it. There's really not too much to it. The contents aren't shown. We got 1 to 4 player, 14 ages and up, 30 minutes per player. If you want to read anything and inspect anything, go ahead and pause the video, because you know what these unboxings are all about that I do here, and it's to look at everything monster. Now, just a simple quick rundown of what this game is. It's a boss battler type of game like Aeon Trespass Odyssey, like Kingdom Death Monster, but in the theme of very closely related to Monster Hunter. And actually a Monster Hunter game. Oh, look at that. We start with the good stuff already, the goodies. As I was saying, now a Monster Hunter game did release soon after this one, but from looking at everything, this looked like the better game. And in some sort of way, it could make sense that it very well could be, as big license, big IP games don't often do very well. Here we have some dashboard type of stuff and the arena, one of the fighting areas. Darion, great sword. So here we have the character sheets. Wouldn't want you missing out on some tasty, playable, monstrous characters. When the prototype of this game released, I did hear great, especially solo, great reactions and reviews on this game. Since these will go rather quick, I decided I'll go ahead and share these with you so you can see the different playable characters. That one's pretty damn awesome. Actually, they're all pretty damn awesome. Alright, so there's the monster boards, and that's our first success. We do have something monstrous. Actually, you know what? Let's look at their full artwork on the back. So these are the different monsters you'll be battling, getting armor from, and weapons from, and all these miniatures will be showcased after all these findings within the box here. That boy's so big he doesn't even fit on there. These are lovely and very nice references to kind of follow along when you paint up these minis, to know what colors to shoot for, unless you want to live on the edge and try something unique. It's a lot of monsters. It's a lot of big monsters, big epics. And just because the playable characters are so awesome, here's those guys again, each with their own descriptions. They're very cool. Next up, we have the rulebook, nicely in white, and the campaign book. Let's just skim through this real quick. We do have component storage. That's just super nice to have that, especially in a box this size. Very nice. This is actually really big for a rulebook, 120 total pages. Looks like it does have an index over there. A lot of big pictures, images, colors. Looks nice and easy to follow. I wonder if this will all be necessary to learn before you even start playing, or if you slowly kind of work into the heavier and heavier rules. I think that's the way to go when making epic games. That's what I would like to experience, and if I made a game, that's the way I would do it. Very nice quality. Next up, we got the campaign book. So there we go. I'm alright with seeing spoilers because I'm not even sure when I'm going to play this, and even if I do play it soon, I'd forget everything anyway because I'll be overwhelmed going over all those rules. This is the campaign, and I like what I'm seeing. There's a lot of flavor text, there's a lot of lore, a lot of stuff going on. That's what I want to see. I don't want to just go back and forth with the mechanics. I like to delve a little bit into the world. Here is your metal forge, so you're going to be forging different types of armor and weapons based off of the various monsters. Player sheets, stuff you're going to be keeping track of. There's trophies, the forge, herbalist, skill tree, materials, plants, elements. Let's take a look at these cards here. As you see, there's an example of one of the swords you can later craft and have, and all this stuff. I've seen little cards, but these are even smaller than the small cards games include sometimes, and I like that. I like table space conservation if it doesn't ruin the game and the epicness of a game and the premium feel of a game. Here's some punch outs. So you got different terrain that monsters will deal with, and the mechanics in this game is really good, works really well from what I've seen with the terrain and working around it for both you and monsters, and different markers here. So a lot of stuff, a lot of punch outs. So here we got all the cards, all the items and mechanic cards. We got some separators. So it looks like you'll be storing all the cards in here, so it should be nice and easy. Once you put all the plastic aside, you got plastic baggies for all the tokens and such. Here's something I always like to see in epic games, and that's a nice little envelope that says do not open until instructed, and it's not damageable, I don't think so, which is always a nice thing for once you're done with the game and you want to pass it along to someone, you don't have anything ruined in it. So here we have all the different cards. The shapes and sort of layout, very reminiscent of Kingdom Death Monster. I'd probably say more so than with Aeon Trespass Odyssey. Moving along, here are the monster AI cards that are going to dictate what the monster does. So not too much to see here. There's probably going to be repetitive art and just little bits of goodies here and there as far as monster art goes, but nothing really extravagant. So without further ado, let's go on into the most monstrous of all things and take a closer look at all this wonderful plastic. We'll begin with the 4 playable characters first. Here we have Darion, great sword. First thing I'm already liking is we have some terrain pieces on the base. As I mentioned with my first impression of looking at the plastic, I don't know exactly what kind of plastic it is. I do like the color of it. It's a little bit different. It's like a warm gray, but it looks like it holds detail very, very well. Beautiful. So that sword is literally attached to only his hands. Not sure how many pieces the mold is, but it looks like it may be 2. But anyway, looking great. Really excellent detail on all the armor and such. Look at that shoulder pad. And these are 32mm scale, I would say. Next up is Mira, the great bow. And she certainly does have a great bow. Sure, the weapons here are oversized, but they're not that sort of oversized that would annoy me or overly stylized with that. Considering the size of monsters and enemies that we are dealing with, to me they still can make sense in this world. Little textures, such as on the bow there, are very clear relatively to the size that everything is. Plastic looks very clean, the molds are very well done. Next up we have Thoreg, the hammer. He's got that long white beard and long white hair. Of course, that's up to you how you want to paint him, but the concept art has that. And then that huge, great hammer. What an awesome model. I would like to have this guy painted up and just sitting somewhere. Very proud and delicious looking with all that detail. Quick glimpse at any mold lines. You can see a little bit of a mold line going down here. Next up we have Leonar, sword and shield. Look at that pose, look at that frickin' shield. That is intense. That is beautiful. We got some texturing on that base in case you don't do any extra work with your bases. It's got a nice big helm covering his face up a bit there. Let's see if his face is still visible. It is. It's just everything's so tiny. I like it because it's more real scale than heroic scale where things are exploded a bit like hands and faces. This is scaled down to be what you would realistically find more or less. And that's probably my preferred scale as far as just having things realistic. I always appreciate miniatures with true scale or whatever you call it, because that just makes everything more of a challenge. More of a challenge to paint, more of a challenge to mold and create, and therefore more respect and appreciation for myself. These monsters are nuts. Just look at the bottom of the base there. It's all nicely textured and all that. Let me resize this for you. I believe this is Varaxen. The assembly on these is beautiful so far. I haven't been noticing any serious gaps. So this guy's more of a wyvern sort of monster. There's a little bit of a better look at the face. See the mouth goes in quite a bit. Nice thick neck. Awesome texturing, fleshy texturing everywhere. You got little holes going in there. Horns and plates all about. And just look at the size of that guy. Alright, next up, I'm just going by order of the cards this time around. This two-tailed fiend is Karja, or Karya. What's pretty awesome is there is a lot of these monsters. There's more than I remembered that I'd be getting, so more than I was expecting, so that's a nice thing. But they're all very unique. Even the Dragonoids from far away look similar, like they're this very similar thing, but nah, everything is very, very much quite different. So these first two monsters deal a lot with the element of fire, it seems. Crack in the earth looks really nice and deep over there, like in all the cracks about. And the placement of the feet looks pretty good. I see the nails not touching the ground completely there, but they are solidly glued there. And I think they're not even supposed to. They're sort of that clinky style, reminiscent always to me, the first and the best original Jurassic Park movie where you see the Velociraptor's claw kind of tapping on the floor. Better look at that face there. So this beastie is clearly more feline-like. Next up is Toramat. So I'm assuming this is more earth element related. I believe every monster has a certain element that it relates to, that it is created of. Quite a unique beastie here. I'm liking it a lot. It's very blunt in its form. Let's see what we can find there. Its face, there is a mouth over there. That's pretty deep. Doesn't appear to have any visible eyes. I know a lot of viewers enjoy Monster Hunter. I never played any Monster Hunter games. I know I will if I ever start playing more video games, but you guys can definitely see the influence here. Anything earthy and earth elemental related, I quite enjoy. And here we have quite the horny fellow. We have Digorax, or Digorax. Very armored, very bony, of the earth elemental, possibly. Again, not completely sure there, as there's also more varied and various elements than just the basic ones we normally speak of. I'm really liking how strong the texturing is, how much everything stands out. To me, from a distance, I mean, this looks almost like a resin copy, like a 3D print. It's very clean. It's not very shiny, non-overly glossy, cheap-looking plastic. You can see where parts connect, like here, but they're very smooth. They're glued on very nicely, very well. There's a bit more separation over there in the tail. You can definitely fill that in. At least it's in an area that's easy to reach and touch up. Even underneath, if you look at his belly, the underbelly there, there's these spines. I love details like this not being emitted. So you got all these spikes over here under his belly, which are just really hard to paint. So to hit all that up, you're going to have to separate him from the base anyway. I wonder if the write-up in the lore shares information about that. That would be a nice big bonus that this game would have over Kingdom Death if it would keep hitting that with the lore on different monsters, where Kingdom Death just kind of teased a little bit of that. I really appreciate when companies and artists take the time to do something that's out of reach and finish a detail like that for those extra wild mini enthusiasts like myself. Here they went all out, adding all that detail, and I think that's pretty damn awesome. Next up is Korowan, our first crustacean looking one. Huge fan of these kind of creatures and monsters, and it's going to be so fun painting it up. And that's why they're also really cool creatures, because these marine creatures, with them you can be so creative in painting them up. And you know what's really super about this sculpt here is just how dynamic, because it's overall it's more or less, it seems like a more simple monster and it's big and all, but just how dynamic the pose is, how it's kind of walking, everything is off kilter, it's off center, it's very organic. It's not just standing there like a stiff creature. It's nothing crazy with them striking or in an attacking pose or something like that, as you don't always need to do that. And especially with these colossal monsters, sometimes you just need to show how titanic they are with their slow moving glory. And with the sword and shield guy here, you can see just how big this fellow is, for instance. And he's actually one of the smaller ones that I just pulled out. All these details of the corals and undersea plant life, I'm really loving it. Just how rusticy that shell is. What a fun idea it would be to make a mold out of this guy and cast it in some sort of resin that you can put into an aquarium and have this guy in your fish tank or something. I think this guy's already among my favorites. That was Korowon, and this is Oroxen. These two seem to be of the element of water. This guy is awesome. When I first looked at this guy, I thought it's another dragonoid form, but no, this is a whole nother thing. This is a underwater, beautiful, scaly kaiju. Look at those 4 fins, the tail, the fins on the tail, the coral reefs growing all amongst it. Even at this point where the tail is very movable and very active, coral reefs were still sculpted onto that area, and smaller ones here and there, and all this veinage and texturing that you would see with marine life. So awesome. And the mouth going deep inside. What a beauty. This guy is awesome. I love the uniqueness on this creature. Look at those horns coming back next to that long dorsal fin. Nothing's touching, nothing's connecting at all. It's all separate pieces of plastic. This guy is gorgeous. Next up, it seems we're going into the realms of some crystalline mineral types of stones. As here we have Phylloxere, with all these wild crystals forming its mane and being very multi-tailed, like its Japanese inspiration, most likely. Let's take a look at what's going on the head here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 eyes, and then we got smaller crystals moving on to the larger crystals. Bit of separation here between the tails and this. It doesn't leave a gap hole, but rather a difference in the sculpt, and that'll be a little bit more tricky to fill out because it would require some sculpting to get it right. So there is that. Now, if you thought that was Japanese inspired, what do you think of this one? It's also from the realms of the crystals. You can see them running down Godzilla's, not Godzilla's, Morcras. I'm liking the separations here of layers of leathery skin. It's something you would see on a rhino. Because of course we do have all that nice little detail of the scalage, but then we have changes between the areas of the scalage. So it's not just a tail with one boring type of scale running along. It does have that scale, but then it changes. It goes through flows and waves, and then adjusts into huge wrinkles, and then that plated leathery armor. This guy looks so great that if he was placed in the world of Godzilla, it would definitely earn its place. Look at those crystals. Look how uneven and imperfect and how natural and organic they look. Look at that mouth. We got little teeth. Look at those detailed teeth down there and the tongue sticking out. Got a nice jaw there. Let's take a closer look. Looks like he does have 2 eyes. Nice detail of the scales running around everywhere. Nothing is done down just because it's a larger model, and I appreciate that. Look at the scalage going on here. Everything's nicely anatomically thought out. You got this more flexible area where there's smaller scales around the chest area, but then below you have these larger scales of armor to protect its underbelly and all of its organs and all that stuff that it really doesn't want to have exposed. There's nice striations going along the neck here that could have something to do with gills or just really cool organic texturing. Nice fat legs on the bottom dealing with that gravity. If you're a Godzilla fan, you gotta love this guy. Look at the detail on that. That's a beautiful piece. Very nice, very well done, and very well produced. That was Morcras. And here now we have something completely different again. What a treat this game is for monster lovers, I swear. Because everything from the concept art to the actual sculpts to the production of the models has been beautifully done with premium attention. So this is Ozu, or Azu, chitinous type of creature. You can see the wings, and they're actually kind of flexible. They're so thin that you can actually bend them a little bit. Things are hard to get to, and I like that. It wasn't dumbed down and simplified. Everything is already pre-built for you, but you can always separate it. You can get under those wings, paint that abdomen up, and do some crazy color on this. You can really practice your non-metallic metal on this guy. Let's take a look at those antennae and see if they actually separate. And of course they do. Quality, my friends. We got a little bit of tendril action going there with the mouth parts. We do have a complete bottom there. Some little eyes there. Side mandibles. And there you go. That's a handsome bug. Alrighty, we got Mr. Longhorn Longtail here. This is Jekaros. Tip of that tail, there's a little fan there. Interesting layering sort of method of the armor and scalage, or horns that are going down the back. So this guy's very wormy-like if you just pay attention to this little area. But then you start working with the hands, the arms, and the legs, and you notice these wild claws over here on rather large hands and two-toed feet. This guy seems like he could be pretty fun to paint because it gets pretty simplistic, the fleshiness here, and there's a lot of more simple flesh areas on him that you can kind of go wild with striping or making some spots. Alright, face close up. Let's see, where are the eyes? Does he have visible eyes? Possibly, or they might be hidden. Even the artwork, on a quick glimpse at the artwork, it doesn't seem like they may be visible. Interesting chest area here. Might be a point of weakness. Looks like a big exposed four-chambered heart. That is Jekaros. And here we have one of the smaller beasties, if not the smallest. This is Huram. Looks like he is lined with just strong, dangerously plated, some kind of chitin or biological armor. In the concept art, it looks shiny, it looks sharp. Imagine this being a real foe you'd have to deal with. Smaller, faster, with razor sharp, keeled scales all over the body. Alright, so we got the eye over here. Mouth, fangs, nostril, nice little details. We got the small scales under the neck, then the larger scales lining down. Nice thick edging like what you would see with actual human armor. Oh, I see. I just felt like that eye on the other side was more pronounced for some reason, and I think they are similar. Again, look at those belly scales. Those are intense. Fully armored creature and fully deadly by just rubbing up against you in the wrong direction. It's pretty fun because when you're looking at all these miniatures at once, at quick glance, some look more boring than others like this one, but then when you pick it up and you look at all the details of it and characteristics that make it unique and make it that specific type of enemy with its own abilities, that's when you just appreciate everything, and everything is so pronounced on these. And next up, maybe more mammalian in nature, Taragua. He's got a wonderful little clubbed tail. Wouldn't you just love this guy as a pet? Although, I'm not sure about that. No, that looks like a very fun and friendly little mouth. Look at that. You could just see him catching that giant tennis ball and bringing it back to you. I love these huge armored pieces and tusks around his head. Awesome front, big part of the body, and then the smaller back part, kind of like you'd see in American buffalo or bison. Yeah, this guy's definitely pretty awesome and very unique. Liking it a lot. Let me know which one is your guys' favorite. You have to choose one. No, I'm just kidding. It's like choosing your favorite child. Well, if the size doesn't give away that this guy is important, the name certainly did for me, as this is just named The Awakened. Now that is a beaut. So that's pretty big. Let's compare it to our sword and shield gentleman here. And that's what they look like together. It's a pretty big piece. You can see we're making a fist next to him. That's how we do it with crazy monster miniatures. We show the size next to a fist. All right, let's take a look. A lot of base sculpting here. So we got all these stones here with runes in them. So you can make those glow or not, or just fill them with moss or some sort of oxidization effect. There's the tail, and look at that. That tail doesn't even touch the base. That is awesome. Let's follow the tail up and then we'll come back to the face. So let's take a look under. He's got some cracks. Moving around, we got an actual hole in that wing. Look at that. Sculpted hole that came out in production. There's another one and another one. All right, let's follow that tail. Horns are just going nuts. That's what I like with a lot of these monsters. They're not asymmetrical completely. You've got areas like these horns that just go wacky and wild, but then they start to get more symmetrical in their areas of organic grouping, but still not perfect symmetry. So you have these short knobby horns among these tall sharper horns, so they're followed side by side with the other ones, and then those diverge and change into short, thin, sharp ones with larger, sharp plates going down the middle. That is just an awesome work of change and scalage. Then you got these organic, wrinkly forms in the wings, and then nice scalage coming down the arms. That's just so much beautiful organic doom right there. Look at that. Lovely. All right, let's go back to the portrait here, which is a nice, beautiful masterpiece of a finish. If this is your final boss or one of them, just look. I mean, all of these guys are bosses, let's face it. But look at the amount of horns. You got all these tiny little keeled scale type of horns. Then you got these bigger ones, moving on to larger ones, moving back to smaller ones, to plates, to different ones, and then the side ones coming down the edges like a centipede's mouth. Looks like the eyes are very small, which either way I appreciate it. If they're small, I sometimes feel that that just makes a gargantuan creature look even more gargantuan. Beautiful tongue action right there. I'm really liking this nose and the whole head sculpt here. It has this ridge going here around the nose. The nose has a nice big nose hole, almost as big as the eye. These guys are just all so different and diverse that even now when I'm looking at all the miniatures, it's hard to tell quickly if I've shown them all yet because each one is really so unique. I think the first one I started with was kind of wyverny as well. I think it was this guy. And so finishing with this leader of the pack of sorts was a nice ending here and a nice touch. You can see the difference in size there. And then with our hero right here. Hope you guys enjoyed this Monstrous unboxing and stay tuned for a very special creation coming up. If you love monsters, you better be subscribed. And if you're unsure if you should be, check out one of these videos here, one over here on the left, I think. YouTube thinks you should see. So I don't know. Let's see if they're right. Huzzah!